Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Ete with another episode of The Company Next Door. Hope you guys are all doing well. As you know, Season 3, I'm out on the road, and I'm here today at a really cool place. Super excited about it. There's some really unique things happening here. I'm still in Deland, which has been surprisingly a really cool, up-and-coming, fun little town that no one's heard of. And I'm here with Britt, and he's the owner of DynoClimb.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
How are you, man? Thanks for letting me come and invade your building for a little bit.
Appreciate it. Honestly, really cool to talk with you and tell our story behind how we started and what we're doing here.
Awesome. So let's do that. I want to ask you this, though. So the company's called DynoClimb.
Yep.
And obviously you have a background in rock climbing, mountain climbing. As we walked through it, we saw bouldering things. There's some really cool things that we're going to get into that I haven't seen anywhere else. What is your background in climbing? When did that love start? How did you get here?
So it's been a part of me since I was 12 years old. So I first started climbing outdoors in Wisconsin, Devil's Lake, Wisconsin, actually, to be exact. My brother introduced me to it. So kind of a cool story. We first started by going out to our local sporting goods store at that time, which was Galleons.
Okay.
They got bought out by Dick's Sporting Goods a while back. But it was a big store in Schaumburg, Illinois, and we went out there. They had a big rock wall. Went and got some gear, prepped, got ready to go, went outside, and, we were still learning about it. We kind of just off the cuff went outside and did our thing. And did some sketchy stuff, probably looking back on it for sure. Used like a static rope as opposed to a dynamic rope. Not so good for anything other than rappelling.
Yeah.
So definitely don't want to take big falls on that style of rope that we took outdoors. But learned from there, and ever since that, it's been a huge part of me. There's something so freeing, just being outdoors, focusing on just every single move that you're doing. It's a unique experience.
When you say freeing, can you elaborate a little more? What do you mean? In what way does it feel freeing?
It's a lot like any other sport where you're focusing on one thing at a time. We have so many distractions in the everyday now. We've got technology, we've got stimulation left and right.
Right.
With climbing, you're focusing on what you're doing each move at a time, each sequence at a time. You get into almost like a trance. It's almost like yoga aspects where you're relaxed and you're zenned out. You're focusing on each move that you're making.
Wow. Are there like mental benefits to rock climbing?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's kind of what you're comparing it to yoga and other things, and I'm just picturing like this crazy world that we have, as you mentioned, with the technology.
Yeah.
I almost wonder if this could offset some of the damage of that.
I think that's why a lot of people are going to climbing now as a functional fitness aspect, and also to kind of disconnect from that too, and then get back to nature and naturalistic aspects of that too. It definitely has mental benefits. So when we see new climbers that come into DynoClimb for the very first time, a lot of them are somewhat a little bit apprehensive, a little bit excited. It's kind of that blend in between, right? Doing something new is scary, especially when you put heights and gravity and all those other things with excitement involved that make it exciting, but also make it a little bit scary. Then you complete your first route, you get to the top, and it's just this empowering feeling that you get. And that mental side of things where you thought you couldn't do something, and then you accomplished it.
And so you're basically proving to yourself that you can do something. So in some ways, there's got to be some analogies where this compares, and you can take these into real life.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Have you seen that? Have you seen people come in and walk out more confident or more aware of, more?
100%. We see it a lot with, we've got a kids climb team too as well. We started this year. And you see those kids develop and build that confidence, as well as the physical attributes of climbing too, in that functional fitness and getting stronger and more balance, flexibility. But you see them develop mentally and take that off the wall as also have it on the wall too.
Right.
So it's a great way to build that confidence. We do see a lot with the benefits mentally from climbing too, with different things from stimulation too as well, in terms of spectrum aspects of it. We actually did like a a spectrum, like all abilities climb time type of thing that we used to offer too, that we've been trying to bring back too. We've seen more things with utilizing that into the aspects of, again, clear mind, focus, things that can benefit from even like ADD or like hyperactivity, things like that, where you're honing in and you're focusing. You have all sorts of different stimulation, but then when you're in the moment, you're releasing those endorphins and getting your brain focusing on what you're doing from there.
So with your business, do you see it more than just it's not just a rock climbing place? Obviously, you have a lot of different things we'll talk about, but then it sounds like this is almost something deeper to you.
Oh, for sure.
This is a solution. This is something bigger.
We're definitely offering a more than just a fitness outlet.
Mm-hmm.
It's a community. It is definitely, a lifestyle too. People take it to that lifestyle aspect. It is something that ties further into just climbing, from getting from point A to point B. And that's the beauty of climbing is there's so many different micro details to it. When you progress in climbing, it's not just, where you're putting your hands or how hard you're pulling on something, but it's the micro details of where you're moving your body, where your feet are going, rotations of your hips. There's slight details that make the difference between if you're accomplishing that route or if you're going to end up falling.
And so you've got to be really, it sounds like you have to become really aware of all your entire being to really pull this off to the next level.
Bingo. And that's when you start getting past those plateaus of climbing and start getting into upper echelon of like competitive climbing. Is people understanding their body and how to solve what we call the routes or problems, how to solve that problem, utilizing what's going to work out best for you. The way I climb something is going to be different than somebody who's shorter. Different body types, different abilities. I don't have flexibility. I've got bicep for days. I can pull on things hard.
Yeah.
But flexibility wise, somebody who's going to be more flexible is going to have different attributes that they're going to bring to how they're going to solve the problem. Makes
sense. So let me ask you this then. As a kid, you started climbing, and like you said, maybe some riskier spots. I'm sure you've been in some. How has this helped you in your journey? This confidence, this ability to say, I can get from A to B regardless of how hard it is. I know I can do it because I'm doing it out here on the wall. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Has there been a part of your life where it's really helped you?
I think,
or something you've struggled with, or
it's definitely the acceptance of failure. It's okay to fail.
Okay.
And I think that's something that we need to accept more is we learn from our failures.
Okay.
We learn from our opportunities. Gravity is inevitable. We're going to end up coming back down to earth. It's how we keep pushing forward, how we learn on what to overcome and what our opportunities, where they lie, and what we can do to push past that to challenge what we think is even possible of ourselves.
So what would you say to someone who's listening right now who is feeling like a failure? Because it's just easy to do.
Yeah.
Even if you are a success, you can still feel like a failure, right? We all struggle with that. What would you say to that person right now if they're listening and go, man, I'm having a rough day. I'm just failing at things.
I would say take a step back. Analyze what your successes are. It's easy to look at what the negative aspect of it is. It's easy to look at, things are rough, and to get into that mindset of, the negative. We got to look at also that positive. So take your wins, analyze where your wins are, take your opportunities, analyze where your opportunities are, and then move from there. In climbing, we call it beta. Okay. So beta is going to be information about a route. Placements, body positioning, holds, what you understand of yourself, where your skill sets lie. Everybody's beta can be different. There can be good beta, there can be bad beta. But taking that beta, that information about yourself, about what your successes are, where your opportunities are, and then using a strategy to come up with the best solution and to press forward. Ultimately, that's the analytics side of climbing.
Yeah.
And kind of that micro detail that makes the difference. So in applying it to business, that micro detail, maybe it's a product, maybe it's something that you're trying to bring to market, or maybe it's something that you have, but it's that tiny little detail that's going to push you to that success.
Gotcha.
As opposed to just scrapping an idea, learning from it, analyzing, and dissecting.
Yeah, and I like this concept of what you call beta.
Yeah.
In business as well. It's just getting that data. I love what you're saying, because sometimes a failure, we feel like it's the end. But I agree. I think sometimes a failure, it's just an opportunity to take it to the next level. If we're willing to analyze and clear-mindedly look at the truth, utilize the data, apply it, and become smarter.
For sure. There's an old saying, I don't know who it's from or where it really ties to, but the master has failed more times than the apprentice has even tried. So, and that's the aspect of, you gotta learn from those opportunities.
What has been one of your biggest failures? Or what felt like, this failure?
I would say biggest failure opportunity-wise would be trying to do too much, I would say. Sometimes as a owner, as somebody who's passionate about what I'm doing, I want it to be a certain way. I want to have things as my mindset and my vision, and that doesn't really help with growth of the people around me. So sometimes it's just taking that step back and letting people learn from themselves. It's the same thing with beta too. Sometimes people just want to learn from themselves and figure things out and use that. So I would say, in a lot of our leaders in business, it's okay to let fires burn. It's okay to let learning situations happen, because then we're going to develop the people around us more. And I would say that's definitely an opportunity that I have, is I'm one of those people that just wants to get it done. I know how I want it, I would definitely say, in terms of letting the reins more loose and having people bring more things to the table.
I love that. And I think it applies too in like a family setting too. I mean, it's not about this end goal of perfection. It's, are we all moving forward together as a team, as a family, or whatever? And like you said, a lot of times that forward progress is just accepting our hardships and dealing with it, letting it be, not just trying to push it off. So, growing up in the Midwest, you're working. How did you get? So did you go to college? Did you end up going to school for business?
I actually didn't go to college.
Okay.
I started working when I was 14.
At retail?
Retail.
Okay.
And even before that, I would actually volunteer at my brother's suit store in downtown Chicago. It'd be me and the tailors on weekends, me learning how to cuff and hem pants and stuff when I'm like 13 years old, decked out in a suit, taking the metro to get down to downtown Chicago.
That's awesome.
But I learned from a young age, and customer service, interactions, how to help people. And then from that, I ended up working for PetSmart for about 8 years, operations manager by the time I was 18. Retail is definitely what and being an entrepreneur is what I had always wanted to do.
Yeah.
I remember a story from when I was a young kid where I grew up in a family of 5. So I was the youngest, older siblings. I would end up borrowing or taking their stuff, setting up like a garage sale in the family room and trying to sell their stuff back to them. So from that moment forward, it was like, okay, you're destined for sales and being an entrepreneur.
What about your parents? Was your dad an entrepreneur, your mom, or?
My dad's actually a minister.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Where is he?
He's actually over in Wisconsin right now too, as well. He still has a congregation over that way.
I've been up there once. Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nice area.
For sure.
A lot of lakes, not mountains, trees and lakes.
Yeah, it's a really cool outdoors woody area over in Wisconsin.
So your dad was a minister. So what did that look like growing up?
So with a bigger family and then him being a minister, we did a lot of traveling too, because he had congregations for the Midwest. So he had some in like Indiana, and he had some where he was like a regional pastor. And then coming from a big family, we did a lot of like congregation, like sports and, activities and things like that. Music. I was involved in music actually up until I was probably like 19. playing musical instruments and singing and all that kind of stuff
awesome.
too. Just one big thing that he had always taught me that I brought through to business and learned from him in business aspect was, whatever you do, be the best at what you do.
Yeah, I love
so
that.
giving your full on and honing in that mastery of what you do. So from that, I took that into retail and applied that to everything I was doing.
Can you apply that verbally here? Tell us what that looks like to apply that idea of whatever you do, be the best at it, into a job like PetSmart. Because I want to ask, because I know a lot of people, because I kind of preach the same thing. Whatever you're doing, just be awesome at it, and somebody will notice, and eventually you'll work your way up. I really believe in that. Like, that effort gets rewarded at some point. What did it look like for you? Because a lot of people, like job like PetSmart, they can show up, do their jobs, and check out and get the check.
And that's what, as being a manager in those industries too, you see a lot of that too. But setting yourself apart, being that go-to person, and then giving it your all. I definitely see that as being something that's the key to success with whatever you do.
Yeah.
So no matter, that was the, if you look in it like, our old tradesmen back in the days of like architecture and things like that, the detail of what the craftsman would create, applying that same aspect to everyday life. So with PetSmart, I started as a part-time associate when I was probably 15. So from there, I ended up being a pet care salesperson. So I'd help people with, their new pets and taking care of, fish tanks and things like that. For me, it was always customer service, interacting, find the best solutions for people, have them come back, recognize you, have them ask for you specifically because they knew that you were going to help them because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And they felt comfortable with that.
Gotcha.
And I kind of took that into the next level of engaging people and then utilizing it and leveraging that for when I became a leader to lead by example, and try and create that best environment for people, be it, customer service or also for employees that were working for me at the time.
So after PetSmart, is that when you went to Dick's Sporting Goods?
I left PetSmart and went to Dick's Sporting Goods. I was with them for another 8 years too, as well.
This whole time, so you established at a younger age, you love to climb, you're passionate, all the benefits we've talked about. You've established, you want to work hard, and you've had some entrepreneurial spirit inside. Were you involved in any businesses during this time? Were you looking for any, or how did DynoClimb? I guess that's two questions. So first, were you looking for any other companies while you were doing this, or how did you manage that? So
DynoClimb came to be once I ended up moving from the Midwest to Florida. It was one of those situations where I'd always wanted to own a business. I'd always wanted to put my skill sets to use, and brainstorming ended up seeing an opportunity and a growth in the market for climbing. Within Florida, you don't have outside rock to climb, really.
Right.
It's a market where we had some gyms that had been here for a 10-year. And we had some, strong climbers in pockets where those gyms had been. But there had been opportunity with different areas and markets where people still didn't understand what climbing was really.
Wow.
And it's a brand new sector of fitness. Within the last probably 10 years, climbing has exploded. So for me, I took that, dissected, the analytic side of things, demographics, and trying to figuring out a spot that would work for the markets and where we really wanted to open up DynoClimb.
Gotcha.
The name DynoClimb kind of ties true back to creating and introducing people to climbing. So during this time frame when we were brainstorming, dinosaurs were becoming popular again. You saw T-Rex on pretty much everything.
Jurassic World. The whole series, all that. Everybody can relate what a dinosaur is. A little kid knows what a dinosaur or a T-Rex is. Adults, same. We all have curiosity in that.
For a climber, a dyno is a dynamic movement. So it's something where you jump and leap to. It's an aggressive primal move. It's a style of climbing.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where you're leaping to it. It's a leap of faith. Your hands leave the hold, your feet leave the hold, and you're flying towards another hold that you're going to try and grab onto.
Yeah, not 100% sure.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So that unsurety aspect. So with that, it kind of ties back to dinosaur, primal, aggressive, that curiosity that, are we going to end up hitting it, that tie into it. So a hardcore climber or somebody who knows climbing is going to understand what a dyno is, and somebody off the street is going to know what a dinosaur is. So both those people coming together to form DynoClimb, and that's kind of where we took that stand on creating that.
And you were looking, so there's a rise in popularity in rock climbing, in rock climbing gyms, or what? It's not you don't call it a gym, do you?
Climbing, a lot of places call it facilities. Some people call it
okay.
crags. There's a lot of nuances for it, but
so it's on the rise, and you were looking, hey, maybe it's time. I've always wanted to do something. Why Deland?
So Deland is very centralized, halfway in between like Jacksonville and then Orlando area. We had a climbing gym that was in Jacksonville and been established there for a very long time. We had a climbing gym that's been established in Orlando for a very long time. So for me, trying to find something to maximize Central Florida. Yeah. We do have members that come from even Tampa.
Wow.
We have members that come from Jacksonville. So being centralized does help us when it comes down to pulling from those different markets.
Everybody kind of comes in.
Exactly. And then also with the tourism aspects, we're in between Daytona Beach and Orlando too. Yeah. So being able to piggyback off that. But also because it's a business-focused small town that's on the rise. It's one of those towns where a lot of movement, a lot of changes happened in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I can sense it in the few weeks I've been here, talking around. I can sense it's kind of up and coming.
For sure.
You said before we started, your wife is from here?
Yes, correct.
Born and raised kind of deal?
Born and raised in Deland, Florida.
Do you have an accent when you're from Deland or no?
Not well.
You wouldn't notice it.
She would say I have an accent coming from the Midwest for sure, but I mean I don't really notice that for sure. But it's kind of funny. She spent her whole teen years calling it Deland, like you're bored, boring, yeah. And then now it's become this hot spot of artistry and music, and obviously with the college over here getting bigger and the universities close by, and just like the small downtown feel, the architecture, the outdoors that are close by too as well. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff.
So what, she calls it something else then instead of Deland, or do they?
Deland now.
Deland. Okay,
D-land,
so it's earned the respect. I got it. It's the Deland. Does she climb also?
She does.
Okay. Is that any part to do with how you met?
That is a huge part, actually.
Okay. Tell us a little bit. I'm just curious.
Sure. So our first date was at a rock climbing gym. So she had just moved to Illinois, and we ended up talking, actually, believe it or not, on Match.com. And we ended up having our first date at a climbing gym called Vertical Endeavors, and it was in Warrenville, Illinois. And it was a place that I used to frequent all the time. It was probably like an hour and a half away from my house at that time, and I would drive to it just because it was one of the only gyms at that time. Lo and behold, I didn't realize she lived probably about 10 minutes away at that time from that gym. And she had frequented it a couple times, and from what she says, saw me before when I was climbing over there. So ended up having our first date at that rock climbing gym. Literally, she was holding me from the first day we met on the wall, saving my life right there, making sure I didn't fall.
And she's still doing it.
Still doing it today. There's been a couple scenarios outside where I've almost fallen pretty heavy, and she's literally caught me again too.
And you have 2 kids?
2 kids.
Do they just love to come here? I mean, this is the playground.
It's a big playground for them. It was kind of cool to see them while we were building the facility interact with it. There was a couple times where it's going to stay with me forever, but my oldest daughter and my younger daughter, I was taking them behind our T-Rex wall, and it was just a skeleton frame. There was like a little passway through it. And they turned back at me and they said, "Thanks for the adventure, Daddy." And it was something that was just, just an amazing experience.
Yeah, the kids have that effect. They just they know how to get you right where you feel it. You've got your two kids, and that's awesome, man. They know how to say the sweetest things, and they also know how to be devils. They're a little bit of both. You had the vision. You found the place. You're here in, at the time, Deland, now Deland. You're going to build this out. You have the idea. You have the concept. Mm-hmm. First of all, how did you get funding? How did you get off the ground? Because from so far, I haven't heard you go into business school yet.
Yeah.
So you don't know what you're doing.
So with that, we were able to get an SBA. I had put a business plan together took about 2 years to put that together fully, do research, crunch the analytics, all that kind of stuff from there.
Did you do it yourself or did you have help?
Myself.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's not easy.
No,
SBA loans are not simple
hard
to navigate. Okay. Awesome.
So ended up going through that. My brother was actually a financial advisor too. So same brother introduced me to climbing. I had pitched the idea to him from the start, and he is an owner in DynoClimb as well.
Okay.
So from that, we were able to raise funds within our family. So family-owned business. So
awesome.
Myself, my brother, and Michelle's uncle too as well.
Wow.
So we were able to do it as a family, and then also offset that with the SBA aspect from there too.
Was it a horrifying time? Was it exciting? Was it just like, oh, what am I doing? This is real. When you start seeing the tens of thousands add up.
It's definitely a humbling experience, for sure. The accountability aspect of it, obviously the risk, it's again like that dyno. You're jumping all in for it. It was one of those times where, for me, the make or break and what really pushed me forward is to take that mindset of I've already done it. So with climbing, mindset is key. When you're first reading a route, when you're first trying to set yourself up, you a lot of the time work it through with your hands. What that does is it allows you to make the moves even before you make the moves.
So almost like an air run?
Exactly.
Okay.
So you see really good climbers walking through with their hands to each move, each sequence, thinking it through. Because once you've gotten up there, you're not having to rethink it. You're mentally prepared yourself for each next move. So really good climbers can play back each sequence of each route that they've done.
Wow.
You see it like with Alex Honnold being able to literally write down every single move and every single, step that he's taken on 1,000-foot climbs. But mindset is key. So for me, the trigger and what truly brought me to that confidence was visualizing I was already there. So I had already set up the business. We were crushing it, visualized each step of the way. And then when I took that leap, it still was scary, but I had visualized being there too as well. So having that confidence definitely was a game changer. And I think that was the kicker of mindset, of acting like I had already gotten to the position that I wanted.
I love it.
And I think that can apply to any sort of position
100%.
you want.
Yeah. I mean, I've learned that myself. When you can actually envision you doing it or having it or achieving it or whatever, like you said, through the air, or whatever, but you do it through your mind, it's very different than, I'm going to take this loan out and I'm going to hope it works. Because you've run through it and you've actually, in some ways, you've done it in your mind. You've achieved it. So was it smooth? Was it, I got the money, no problems, we built the building now, we're under budget?
I mean, it was, the biggest thing was construction aspects of it. If I could do something over again, it would definitely be, figuring out and being more solid on build out aspect of it, for sure. And it came down to time frames. They always tell you it takes longer, costs more than what you think. And that's definitely the fact on there for sure, 100%.
What was the time frame that you had hoped in your mind, and what was it to get to the build out?
So we were looking at like a 3-month build out.
Oh,
which
wow.
all in all, like, is pretty tight looking back in retrospect.
Yeah.
We had the building, everything was good on there. We pretty much just needed to gut it and then have the climbing wall companies come out and knock everything down. Put everything up.
Yeah.
The climbing wall company was on it, man. They were literally a well-oiled machine, and they were done with their stuff within a month.
Wow.
So we had a process of basically 3-month build out, and it ended up being probably around more of 6-month build out. So looking back in retrospect, that was definitely something that I would have, wanted to get more oiled in and,
Sure.
Made sure that obviously that got a little bit more, accounted for, I guess, in the grand
Well,
scheme
and
of
it's hard
things.
to, and just for those listening, you might hear a drill or a bang occasionally. Talking about build out, they're still doing some upgrades. They're putting a really cool thing over there. We'll talk about in a minute, but that's what that sound is. Okay, so it's 6 months. You're getting ready to open the doors.
Yep.
What was that like? Was it, and how did you open it? Was it a grand opening like the town? What was that experience like?
It's an amazing experience. I had the opportunity to do some grand opens with corporations within PetSmart and Dick's Sporting Goods for brand new stores. And there's always that really cool facet of you have ownership. Like literally, not just you, like your team, because your team's done that. Your team's built it from the ground up. Your team's gotten the nitty gritty. They put the stuff on the shelf. It's a really cool feeling. So with that, it's just that excitement behind it, the energy, that the questionings of, how it's going to go.
Yeah. Were you nervous? And
yeah, definitely,
Oh, yeah.
definitely nervous. I mean, you got to have nerves to then also have the adverse aspect of it of excitement. But for me, I felt confident in what we were doing. I felt that we had a good product, which is our routes and our climbing and the gym itself. Obviously, we're selling ourselves as a service. That's
Sure.
what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And I had confidence in that. But it's always going to have the question of if we're doing enough, or are we going to have that? Are our athletes? We call them our athletes, our customers. Are they going to have that? That's that expectation. For me, it's I want to live up to that expectation. I want to provide the best that we can, of course. So it's always that question of are we doing that? So that's what was lingering in the back of my head was, are we going to meet that expectation? We had done a lot of hyping up on social media.
Yeah.
Social media is obviously great for that. Developing and building up your consumer base and your, talking yourself up, building up what you do. So were we going to hit the mark? That was
Right.
my question, basically. And we did our grand opening. We did a soft opening before that, obviously, to get some of the, kinks worked out and get things fluid and get the operations. Because when you start up a business, too, it's those operations that make the difference, the consistency side of things.
The processes,
That's the biggest thing, obviously, is getting those systems well-oiled and getting
Yep.
them going when you're starting things from brand new. And there's not much. There are some resources, you can pick up from the industry and different things like that. For us, we leveraged the Climbing Wall Association, and our climbing wall builders also had different operational things, and then learning from other, businesses and how they did it within our industry. But obviously, it comes down to being on you for the business owner and your team of instilling and creating those processes.
Yeah.
So we did the soft open, got things rolling from there, and then did that grand open. It was exciting, obviously, having a ton of people in the building all at once, having different like competitions and, event and things like that we did.
Yeah.
Tied in local vendors. So we have a lot of local vendors that were excited about us too. Within the same, passions for outdoors and climbing. We had, a juice bar come out, beetroot juice. We had our other different, chiropractic connection, a lot of different local businesses that tied back to what we were doing.
Yeah. That makes sense. Smart.
Outsiders, they're a company in downtown Deland too as well, but brought them in and made it a big event. So we also tied in other local businesses with our grand opening, which was super cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Being able to do that and kind of attunes to the community and the business community that surrounds us.
So it was a pretty exciting, successful day then, it sounds like. Yeah,
definitely.
And since then, it's been about a year and a half, I think, that roughly since you've opened here. What has been, what's it been like? Has it been hitting the marks that you had hoped? Is it not quite there? What are you finding out? What are you learning?
It's definitely I would say, roller coaster ride. This whole year has been crazy. Absolutely crazy.
This is the word. I know it.
So I would say we're not hitting what I thought we would hit.
But you also didn't, in your mind,
we didn't
plan on a pandemic.
We didn't put in there for a pandemic for sure.
For sure.
But I mean, from that standpoint, I would have to say I'm humbled by our community. We had members who opted in to pay full dues when we had to close.
That's awesome.
We had, people still supporting us left and right via, vocally or also, monetarily.
Wow.
It's just amazing that we had such an impact on people in such a quick time where they
took care.
They took care of us, and they said, we want you here. We want you to stay around during this craziness. When we come out of it, we need you.
So last year, 2020, was there a breaking point for you? Was there a time when you just thought, man, this is, I don't know. I don't know if I can push through this. And it could just be mentally. It doesn't have to be, was there just... What was it like?
I mean, I think we've all been there at a time, the last year. So in 2020, where it was just like depressing. We're all depressed. It's, we're having to change our schedules. We're having to, adjust to this new normal and what's going on with the world around us. And for me, as a business owner and the community and having all of this weight on my shoulders, it was very taxing. There was times where, it was depressing, and it was one of those situations where there was times where I was questioning myself if, can I get through this? Am I going to end up, being the leader I need to be during this time?
Sure.
Or am I wearing my emotions on my sleeve too, as well? And obviously as a leader, those are the questions that we have to ask ourselves too.
Every day, 100 times a day. And especially on something so unknown like the pandemic. So, of course you're in business for a half a year or plus. This thing hits. Were you ordered to shut down for a period of time? Were you essential? How did that work here?
Correct. So we had to shut down. We were shut down for, I think, 2 months, a little over 2.5 months. So it's one of those things you don't prepare for, especially being in a new business too, as well as you're like, okay, you're just opening doors. No, okay, now you're shut.
Yeah.
It's taxing, obviously financially, emotionally, your team, especially being a new business owner. We're getting our processes hammered out. We're getting things and working them. And then all of a sudden, everything changes.
It's not like you've been in business for a decade and you had these systems and people can onboard and easily. You were just building them.
Bingo.
So when it hit and you kind of got through it, how long did it take? And has it, this new normal, whatever that is, have you been able to keep people coming in? Have people been coming out since you were able to open back up?
It's been amazing. So obviously everybody's different. One person's good is going to look different from another person's good.
For sure.
Everybody's going to have their own opinions on things. But when it comes down to it, my stance was to find a happy medium, and has always been to find the blend of what we can do to provide the best for our community. And from that, we've had 99.9% people say you're doing the best that you can do to provide the best situation that we can.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately a very humbling experience from that too as well. We did a lot when it comes to trying to take steps and get things going proactively. When we closed, I already had systems in process with sanitation, hand sanitizer. We had stations already in here before this whole thing. The moment that we closed, I was ordering things left and right, getting things prepped for when we could reopen, trying to proactively prep ourselves for success with processes. Being the business that we are, we actually are able to track ins and outs of people too. So when members come in, they check in,
Sure,
they check out.
Yeah, so you have records of that.
Bingo. So for us, we're in a very cool situation where if we have an exposure type of situation, then we can hone it down to the minute.
And who was in there, and gotcha.
Bingo. So with that, being open and communicating that information to people shows another facet of, transparency and confidence. And ultimately, coming down to it, I think that's what a huge thing for us in WINS is being transparent and being open and communicating with our athletes what was going on, what we were doing, the steps we were taking. Showing people that we do truly care about them being in the building and doing what we can to mitigate as much risk as we can.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a crazy business business lesson to learn in your first year of business. Yeah. But that's awesome. It's really awesome. Like as I walked in today, my first time here, guys, the place is packed. There's people climbing on there's bouldering, and it was awesome to see that, because right now, you're right, a lot of people are very discouraged. Yes, some of us still have our doors open, but there's a lot who don't. I have a lot of friends or they have their doors open with massive amounts of debt to survive this year. And so it's really, for me, it's exciting. And part of the reason I'm on the road is to tell the narrative, like everybody's at home thinking things are falling apart, but I'm actually seeing people coming out and being resilient and getting creative and saying, okay, we can't do it the way we used to do it, but how can we do it now and still be safe? And so really awesome to see that you've survived it and things are running and people are coming out.
Definitely. It's, again, a big thing for me is just our community. It all comes down to that community and the people that you surround yourself with, the other local businesses,
sure.
Those connections. So together, we're stronger.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. What is something that you would say if your daughter, did you say you have 2 daughters?
2 daughters.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm like, well, I better make sure. Said, in a few years, Dad, I want to be an entrepreneur. What would you say to him?
I would say the same thing that my dad told me. Whatever you do the best you can at it. I would get them working early. I was talking with somebody about this probably a couple months ago. It's harder to see younger youth working nowadays. A lot of corporations are taking the stance on, starting work and employment at 18. There are some that are dropping that back down to like 16. Obviously, it's different for minors. You have different regulations and things you have to follow. But for me, I think a big thing was learning and apprenticing almost at a young age. That it taught me a lot about, everything from P&Ls to how to interact with people and, how to sell yourself and be a leader. And I think those are things that we need to instill back with even our youth too as well.
Yeah, for sure. What has been, do you feel successful? Do you feel like you've achieved success, or what are you looking for out of this?
I feel like I'm always learning.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I would say that I don't feel like I've achieved success. For me, it's, tomorrow. It's my continued growth. I think that I have been resilient, and I think that I've brought something to life that could even transcend what we're doing here today. So for me, it's, that future growth. Yeah. I think that's what drives me, honestly. What
do you hope to see DynoClimb become over the next 10, 20 years? What's your vision?
So for vision, I would like to end up expanding our facility here, as well as potentially opening up another location. Okay. And then from there, helping others achieve their goals within climbing through franchising. Cool. I think for me, that it would be the icing on the cake is being able to help others achieve their goals in opening up a rock climbing gym. I think that would be super cool to see other people's, growth and leveraging what has been successful for me.
Yeah.
With other people with their passions.
Awesome. What role has your was it Allison? Is that your wife's name?
Michelle.
Okay, I'll edit that.
You're
okay.
good.
We'll go back at it. What role has Michelle played in this? Obviously she likes to climb, and I'm sure she's at home with the girls. Did she help with the build out? Does she help with any part of it?
Yeah. So Michelle has been a big part from the beginning in helping with development of ideas and branding aspects.
Okay.
She's amazing when it comes down to building the branding side of Dyno, with creating designs and doing that, like publications and print, like all of our signs, things like that we have around are all her. In liability wise, as well as like human factors and risk mitigation, she actually has a degree in that too as well.
Wow.
So from that early on, really helped out with our operations and safety, and mitigating risk too as well. With ideas and being a part of the development of Dyno too as well. She was a huge contributing party for that too. And then the motivation side of things too. Yeah. Obviously just, if there was times where I was second guessing myself, pushing me further, literally catching me again.
Yeah, no, I get it. I 100%, man. I couldn't do it on my own. That's for sure.
For sure.
My last kind of question on that is, hold on, pause for a second. I want to change it. Okay, just a couple more. We're on you down here. Okay. Whoop, edit. All right, so let me ask you this. When we were outside, you were giving me the tour. I lost the name of it, but you showed me this really cool new feature you're putting in. Mm-hmm. Could you take a minute and explain to the listeners what that is and it was so cool. It was awesome.
Sure. So the kilter board is the variable climbing wall that we have, and doing some updates and upgrades on that over there right now, adding some different volumes and different features on it. But it's a big adjustable climbing wall. And what it does is it has LEDs that are backlit. Consistency with climbing in terms of grades as well as movements and climbing's subjective. Like I said before, one person's going to climb a little bit differently than another person. Right. Difficulties might be different too as well. One person might feel that a certain route is a higher grade, so another person might feel that it's lower. The kilter board, no matter where you are in the country or in the world at large, if it's that same kilter board setup, it's going to be the same no matter where you are. So gotcha. Japan or Deland, Florida. So it adds to the consistency and then allows for us to, and our climbers, to be more creative with it too. You can make your own routes. You can work certain sequences. It's an amazing tool when it comes down to engaging with our athletes and also creating a consistency in what we're doing.
Gotcha. That's awesome, man. I love it. So again, thanks, man, for letting me come by and take some time.
Thanks for coming out.
Let me ask you my kind of final question, just kind of a get to know you question. But if you're stuck on an island and you can bring one meal, one album, and one book, what would you bring?
Meal, album, and a book. I would say the book would probably be The Giver. I don't know. I read that book a long time ago.
Yeah,
but
I remember that book.
It's always stuck with me. And just in terms of like having those emotions is definitely a huge part, because we got to experience pain to have pleasure and vice versa.
Right.
For a meal, I mean, I would have to say pizza. Climbers and pizza are like one and the two, man. Miguel's Pizza, Climbers and pizza is the jam for sure.
What's a good pizza joint around here for someone who's?
Around here, Dobros, Chicago style.
Dobro, okay.
Yeah, we got to go Chicago style.
From Philly originally, so I'm definitely more thin, East
Oh.
Coast, but it's okay. It's okay. I've had some good Chicago style. That's
All right.
Dobros. That's in town.
Dobros.
Okay. And what album would you bring?
Album. I would probably say if I'm on an island, I want something. I would say like 311.
Cool.
Like something like
beachy,
jammy, beachy.
Yeah. I did hear
chill music.
As I was setting up, I was hearing Audio Slave and I was hearing Rage. So some cool stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Those are the bands that I love. Actually, I lied. I have another question. What's your favorite climb? I mean, have you traveled around the world to climb, or mostly in the States?
Not around the world, States.
Okay.
In terms of climbing outside, I would probably say my favorite one right now would probably be this thing called Something's Always Wrong in Tennessee.
That's a good name.
It's literally very fitting.
Yeah.
I took a trip out there last week, and it's one that I want to go back for to get it. But I would say, all in all, my favorite climb outside in general is probably this climb in the red called Breakfast Burrito.
Cool name.
Just pretty cool on that route. But most recently, I would say Something's Always Wrong.
I love that name.
Right?
I love that name. You know what? Let me ask you this too. Why don't I just keep going? No, but you've mentioned a lot about the community, and they've been helpful. Is there anyone or any groups or anyone in particular that you can shout out to? Or I don't want to put you in the spot of starting listing names and you'll forget, but it sounds like it was a huge part in making DynoClimb become what it was, what it is.
Are you talking about local businesses or just at large?
Just anyone that's had an impact on what you've built.
I mean, Outsiders has been with us since the very get-go. They're a local shop that also does tours and sells gear for outdoor recreation too.
Okay.
They've been excited along with us, since the day that we came up with the idea and went and shopped at their store and started talking with them. So I would say Outsiders has been an amazing, partner.
Awesome.
With everything. They're actually members too as well.
Oh,
so
cool.
The full-on group. And then I would also say Skydive Deland.
Cool. Don't know who that is. Yeah.
Very similar, adventure type of athletes too as well. Believe it or not, Deland is one of the skydiving capitals of the world.
I never would have thought.
So
it's crazy this town.
It ties together,
Yeah.
a lot of good jumping weather, especially when it's cold up north.
Yeah.
People come down this way, but they've been amazing too. We've had tons of members from that community. And then just all the local businesses around, Beetroot Juice, Centro Tico, Wiseax. There's way too many to mention,
Sure.
but all the local businesses are very supportive around here for sure.
And I love it. I love that that's the community here. Britton is the full name.
Yep.
And you said your family goes back to Britain?
Yeah, my dad's actually British.
Your dad, okay. Did he grow up in the UK or?
Believe it or not, he grew up in India. Kind of a weird kind of connection back there.
I gotta hear this.
He grew up in tea estates in what's called the Nilgiri Hills in India. Speaks fluent Tamil. But yeah, crazy connections. But he ended up going to study in England when he was becoming a minister, and ended up meeting my mom over there.
Wow.
My mom was from upstate New York.
Wow.
Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, it's way up there.
So kind of crazy, obviously, how they met. But my family's had a lot of cool experiences, been around the world, and I've had the opportunity to take that all in and make it a part of me for sure. That's
awesome, man. Awesome. Cool. All right, man. Well, thanks. I hope you guys enjoy this episode with Britt and with DynoClimb. We have links in the show notes, and, they got memberships, it sounds like. And so, obviously, as you've heard, and I'll take some pictures, just a great community, great atmosphere here, great music. Like, this seems like a place that I would just hang out. And so, well done on that, man. I hope, I know it's been a year and a half and it's been up and down, but I hope, with this pandemic kind of behind us, hopefully, I hope good things are in your future.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming out.
Awesome. Thank you guys for checking out this episode of The Company Next Door, and we'll see you on the next one.